All right, so I'm going to lower the front of this second Navi here. So step one, I put it on the center stand and I lifted up the front wheel enough to put a couple of jack stands for a car underneath the front pegs. Then I took off the 19 millimeter nut so I could slide the axle out, took the wheel off and just rolled it back. Of course, it just rolls with the brake assembly still attached. Next thing I did was remove the fender. Of course, this bike already had the fender removed, so that's simple, but take out these 2 bolts on the front of each side and then the one on the back side, pull the fender out. The next step is to slide these boots down and then use a set of snap ring pliers to release this. This snap ring sits up inside of these. Take that out and just have this holding it up in place. Next step is to remove this for disassembly, and I'll be right back. All right, so now I've got them pulled out. This is what the front forks look like. You pull these out and then these 2 little rubber bump stops will fall out and then the springs will come out. As you can see, I cut springs. I did shave down the top so that they're mostly smooth and flat, but simply reinstall exactly the same way that they came out, minus the pieces that I cut off. How much you cut off is really up to you. I suggest for anybody doing this for the first time, maybe cut just a little bit off, maybe 1 inch, and then if you don't like it, take it apart again, cut a little bit more off, a little bit more off. I went maybe 2.5 inches off of the spring. It's gonna probably take maybe 1.5 inches to 2 inches lower once it's actually compressed, because the weight of the bike already compresses the spring just a little bit. But now I'm gonna put it all back together and we'll see how it looks. All right, it's a little difficult to tell, but it is all back together and lowered a little bit now. I added some carbon fiber vinyl. A lot of people have added gold vinyl and bronze vinyl and stuff, and so I had a bunch lying around, and since I had it all taken apart and cleaned up, I might as well. There was a little bit of spray paint on the bottom of the forks as well, so I went ahead and just wrapped it instead of trying to bother cleaning all that off. I also added a little jewelry bit and some stainless hardware in the fender bolts, but brand new fender, and it is lowered a little bit. Visually very difficult to tell from looking at the other Navi, but it does have a little bit of suspension left, not a whole bunch. I mean, it still bounces a tiny bit when I put some weight on it. Still uses the standard kickstand with no modification yet. I put the rear shock is back to stock from the blue RFY that came on the bike. So the back is stock, but it does have a 12-inch rear wheel and stock tire on the back. So it's a little bit lowered. I cleaned up the stock windshield that came on the bike and put it back on. So that's back on there. Bike is almost 100% rideable and back together. Now, if the weather would just warm up, I'm gonna try to get some video later on once I'm riding it, ride height and all that. But pretty easy to take these apart and lower them. The main thing is if you don't have a set of snap ring pliers, you don't have to have fancy snap-on branded ones. You just need something that will make the snap rings so you can take them apart. Everything else is pretty simple and basic. So I really appreciate everybody watching. Thank you for all the likes. Thanks for the comments. Thank you for subscribing. Please keep it up. More to come. Goodbye.